You have just purchased the OTL Front Mount Intercooler for your GR Corolla, and you might be wondering, how do I install this giant unit? Well, we're going to show you today. If you're new to the channel and you have not seen the OTL Front Mount Intercooler, go check out our video in the description where we show you our in-depth testing. We took a stock GR Corolla, tested the OEM front mount, and then threw our OTL front mount on it and did that test as well. You'll see in the video there are holes on either end of the front mounts, and that is because of the sensors that we used. But your car will not have these holes, so keep that in mind. With that being said, let's get into the install. So our first step is going to be to remove the intake. Now, we have the eVenturi intake on our car. The OEM one will look a little bit different, but it's still, you're removing a snorkel that comes up to the front here, and then there's an air dam in front of the grill. Now that that is done, we're going to be removing this cover right here. And what I like to use for this is a small flathead and then some sort of 90-degree pick. You have to use the 90-degree picks on these ones inside here just because your flathead screwdriver cannot get underneath of it. So now that you've completed the step of removing this cover right here, we're going to be taking 10 10mm bolts out of the bottom of the bumper here, and then 3 on each side in the fender wells. They're very tiny, and you push and twist to get those ones out. And once you have those out, we can go ahead and remove the front bumper. And there's one bolt in the top center right here. 10mm, small screw, and it's the same on each side. So small screw, 10mm. Once that is all complete, there is a wire going to the front of your bumper here, and then your 2 fog light wires that will have to be removed. Now that we have those bolts all undone, just go ahead and grab and pull. Looks like my foam wants to go with it. What you'll see when you remove your front bumper is actually this foam piece just sits in just like this as a bumper support of your crash bar. Go ahead and remove that, keep it, and then your crash bar will be 4 14mm bolts on each side. So you have 8 bolts in total, and then there's one right in the center, and that'll be a 10mm. Also, just want to let you guys know, don't be afraid to let your bolts fall inside of this thing. It's completely hollow, so when you take it off, you can just dump it out and all your bolts come out. So you're going to be removing that 10mm. This will slide out, and then just remove the clip for your air temp sensor. One thing that I forgot to mention earlier was the lower crash bar. Now, we've already done testing with our intercooler on this car, so we actually went ahead and removed this completely, but when you take your front bumper off, you will see that you have this giant lower crash bar, and as most of you may know, when you upgrade your intercooler to an aftermarket intercooler, there are some things that will have to be removed. So just put this in your parts pile and just keep it for later in case you want to throw it back on the car if you revert it to stock or anything like that. But don't throw this away. I'm sure it's pretty expensive to purchase from Toyota new, so keep this in your parts pile. Now that we got that crash bar out of the way, let's go ahead and just remove this clip to our ambient air temp sensor. Just like that, when we get that out of the way. And then our next step will be to actually move the entire assembly out of the way, just so we can get our intercooler in there. So let's do that next. All right, for this removal, 10mm wrench. All it is 10mm bolt here, 10mm bolt here, and then there's also one on the other side of this. Should just fold this up out of the way here. Now we have a clean and open workspace. All right, now that all the boring stuff is out of the way, let's get to the front mount intercooler. All you're gonna need is a 10mm, and there's be 1 on the passenger side of the car and 2 on the driver's side of the car. And then you'll have to loosen the hose clamps, and those are also 10mm, and I'll show you how to get to those in a second. I also did want to point out, there's supposed to be a rubber grommet in this hole, as well as down here where the intercooler rests. They're currently on our aftermarket intercooler, so you will have to swap those over, and I'll just show you how to jam them in there, but they're super easy. It's just a rubber grommet. You slip it out of this hole, you put it in the identical hole on the OTL intercooler, and same goes with this. Like I mentioned before, we did testing with this intercooler, so we did drill in here and here, and that is where our sensors went. Check out the video in the description so you guys can see all of the in-depth testing that we did with the factory intercooler. Okay, so now this is probably the hardest part of the whole thing. It's super easy, but what you're gonna need is a really long extension, and you're gonna actually go from the top of the car and you're gonna hit these worm clamps that are attached to your intercooler ends. That's the easiest way that I've found. If your clamps are in a position where you can't get it from the top, loosen it a little bit with a wrench, and then go ahead and spin your clamp so you can get it from the top, because it's super open up here and it's really easy to get to. And also, when you're installing your new intercooler, if your clamp is the wrong way, I actually took the clamp off, turned it around, and then faced it up. So that is the worm clamp in question from the front. Now I'll show it to you from the top. As you can see, all the room in the world up top on this side, and then if you come to the passenger side, same deal. That worm clamp is just straight down there. So there's not a whole lot of room up here, which is why I said you can get your wrench in there and twist it that way, but I would always spin it so it faces up and you can get it from the top. We really don't need that extra foot. This looks kind of goofy now that I'm seeing it, but all you're gonna do, come down, sneak your hand through the side here, hold on to that worm clamp, and just go ahead and back it all the way off. Not all the way, but most of the way. Moving over here to the other side of the car, same thing. Go ahead and just snake it down through. Take your hand, slide it right past here, and just lay it on that worm clamp. And then go ahead and undo your clamp. Now that is done, you're just gonna take, and you should just be able to pull. And there's one side. There's the other side. And just like that, your GR4 intercooler is off. And also guys, we do have our intercooler piping on this car as well. That is not available to the public quite yet, but it will be very soon. Possibly by the time you're seeing this video, it might be available, but it is now April 11th, I believe. So intercooler piping will be available. Our actual intercooler itself does not launch until May 1st. It was available for pre-order, but we actually sold out of those in like 2 days. So that was awesome, but the piping itself will not be available until pretty much our launch date. So keep an eye out for that. All right, so before we install the actual front mount, I just want to show you guys where you have to trim. So if you can see, if you look really close, there is 2 pieces of material here. There is this part, where it is riveted to this big part right here. So essentially what this duct does is it comes to a point right here. Since we already have it trimmed, obviously I cannot show you, but you will just have to trim that back, and really you're getting more airflow if you think about it. So you're just gonna do that on both sides. You're just gonna cut it back. Just follow this line of this inside part here, and then just kind of square it off. So that's what it looks like for us. And then if you come over to the car, on our actual hood latch assembly here, down at the bottom, again, it is already trimmed, so unfortunately I cannot show you, but there is a piece that comes out right on this line, and all you're gonna do is just cut that piece off. So it's pretty easy. It's not too invasive at all. And then the last piece that is needed to be trimmed is actually this piece right here. So as you can see, it is cut here, and it is the same on both sides. So if you come over here, we also gave it a trim right there. So you can actually just remove this whole piece right here, chop it there, make it nice and flat, and then you're good to go. Now let's put on the new intercooler. Hello, Zena. All right, before we actually install it, this is the piece I was talking about earlier. It comes out of the old intercooler. It was actually the piece that was on this left side here. we're going to take it and we're going to insert it on this side on our intercooler. And then the rubber grommet piece I had already put in there, but that is the rubber grommet piece there. Now that you have everything trimmed and the bumper is clear, we're gonna go ahead and install the OTL intercooler. Once you got finger tight on the driver's side, come over to the passenger side and do finger tight on this top bolt here. All right, now that we have the intercooler on, we're gonna go to the engine bay. We're gonna reach down, we're gonna grab the piping, we're gonna push it onto the end tanks. So now we're on the passenger side of the car. You're gonna just reach through your AC line and then your coolant line. Just come down here, come down here. Grab it, just work it on. Don't worry about tightening the clamps quite yet. And then we'll go over to the opposite side of the car. Same deal on this side. This one's a lot easier to grab just because you really have nothing in the way. But like I said before, we do have our hard piping on here, so that's why it might look a little bit different for you guys. This is our intercooler hard piping that I just got into the intercooler. So what I did to make it work, now that the left side is bolted in, I actually went ahead and undid the bolt on this side so I could bring the whole intercooler out and then get the piping lined up perfectly. So if you're having trouble trying to put this in, that's all you have to do. Make sure your passenger side is bolted down, but then your driver's side, you just pull it out, everything should line up. So now we have the intercooler piping on, we're just gonna zip this driver's side back on, and then we'll actually be going from the top of the car again with our extensions to get the actual worm clamps on the intercooler piping. Make sure also that everything is nice and tight. Look at that. Like I said, just to clarify, these bung locations, we drilled those in. Yours will not have that. It'll be nice and smooth here. This was just for testing. Okay, now that we have the front mount installed, we're gonna reach through the top of the car again with our extensions and our 10 mil. We're gonna tighten those worm clamps. All right, so like I said, sneak your hand in here right by the intercooler until you hit the worm clamp, rotate it up, and then just kind of hold your finger under it. Make sure it is towards the end so you're nice and closed off, and then you just run your drill right down here. All right, let's go to the passenger side and do the same step. Same thing, sneak that down in there. Line up that worm clamp. Make sure you double check your clamps. Make sure they're not crooked or on the wrong side of our lip. Everything looks good. Now your OTL intercooler is fully installed and it is time to reassemble the car. So what we're gonna start off with first is actually just putting back the hood latch assembly, and then we'll be throwing on the crash bar support, the foam, and then the bumper will be ready to go back on. So just repeat those steps that we did to take them off and you're good to go. I just want to take a quick second and kind of show you guys why we designed our intercooler the way that we did. So if you see here, our OTL intercooler takes up the same amount of vertical real estate as the OEM one. So the intercooler is not being blocked by the crash bar. It's not being blocked by the lower crash bar, obviously because we take it off. But I mean, we really just, I think we knocked it out of the park with this one. Yeah, there's minimal trimming. The actual trimming that you do is not attached to the bumper. Like it is a piece that you can take on and off of the bumper anyway. So it's not like you're having to trim the bumper. And then as far as like ducting and things go like that, like everything is still, your brake ducting is fine. The vent that goes from the front of your bumper up here is fine. Nothing is touched. Our intercooler does not interfere with the radiator, so everything can stay nice and cool. We've done about 30 to 50 pulls with this intercooler on it, and it's just been awesome every time. We did a bunch back to back. We probably did 20 or 30 back to back pulls and never saw our intake or our our hot side or cold side air temps, they stayed the same the entire time. We went into the night doing it. We tested about 60 degrees ambient, and then as it got cooled off, obviously it's springtime here, so it got to about 40 to 30 degrees ambient, and our temperatures just kept going down, which is super awesome to see. We were able to just keep making power with each pass, which is super important if you're planning on tracking this car, because I know by lap 1 or end of lap 1, lap 2, lap 3, your car is just going to be losing horsepower, and we did not see that even with the stock car. So we took a bone stock car, threw our intercooler on it, and saw immediate gains. And the gains, horsepower gains, are not substantial without a tune. So we put it on, I think we saw like a 5 horsepower gain maybe, but it's the temperatures that's the important part. It's the staying cool, not heat soaking, and that's like one of the biggest issues with this car. So that's what we really want to lean on with our full bolt-on car, which is this one. So it has the OTL downpipe, catback, the Venturi intake, and then the OTL front mount now. We made 345 wheel and 360 torque. So that's pretty awesome. We ran into the next weak point, which is the clutch. Once we get a nice clutch in there, then we are also going to be doing some head work at the same time. But yeah, guys, I just want to tell you guys, you know, this intercooler is pretty awesome. Our numbers are insane. Our testing was very in-depth. There's a lot of information that you can read on this in the forums and then on our website as well. So yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that if you are in the market for an intercooler, this is a great option to choose from. Okay guys, that's going to be it for the install video on the front mount for the GR Corolla. I will note that we are offering the GR Corolla with stenciling and without stenciling, so you can either get the OTL logo or just a blank canvas if you want the more sleeper look. We cannot put the GR4 stencil on it because of copyright and things like that, but we can sell you a blank one where you can do whatever you want with it once it's yours. So if you guys have any other questions, make sure you follow our Facebook group. It's just GR Corolla Performance. You'll see the OTL shop banner, but we put all of our updates in there, as well as follow the main page, offlineperformance.com, on Instagram and Facebook. But we have a whole slew of parts coming out for this car coming up, so just stay tuned and keep an eye out for us. But all in all, I hope you guys enjoyed watching today's video. Leave a like. Comment any questions that you guys have. I'll be in there responding, and then hit that subscribe button because we come out with new content weekly, and we have a lot in store for the Corolla. So thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed watching, and we'll see you next time.